Now, it's been 4 years since the United Nations adopted its Sustainable Development Goals, meant to improve the lives of billions of people by 2030. But a third of the way towards the deadline, a review has found that the world is likely to fail to meet its commitments for education. Under the Sustainable Development Goals, all children should be in school by 2030. But at present rates of progress, 14% will still not be in education by then. On literacy, all young people should be able to read and write by 2030, but it's feared that 20% will still be illiterate. Projections are worse for low-income countries like Pakistan. It's expected that a quarter of the country's children won't complete their secondary education by the 2030 deadline. DW has been to visit a school there to see what is being done to get kids into school and to keep them there.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and Sajid Mohammed should be getting ready for school. But the 12-year-old stopped going a few years ago in order to work and support his family.
I come here early in the morning and stay till late, which is very tiring. When I get home, I have a bath and go to the mosque. We don't have money, which is why I can no longer study.
Sajid's situation is the norm for millions of children across Pakistan. A new report from UNESCO estimates some 5.3 million are out of school at the primary level. And girls lose out the most. 21% are married as children and afterwards stop going to school.
Pakistan's continuing education crisis is mainly down to decades of underinvestment and mismanagement of the entire system. And faith in politicians to finally improve things is so low that many people are taking matters into their own hands.
This school was established by volunteers in Karachi, offering free lessons to the nearby fishing community. The classes offer an escape to its pupils and hope for a better future.
We
were forced to open this school as there are no functioning government ones in the area. And many of our children are getting into trouble, especially with drugs. We tried to get support from the government and press them to help us, but heard nothing back. This is why we set it up ourselves.
We play games and really enjoy ourselves. They teach us well, so we like coming here.
I want to study and become a pilot when I grow up.
They teach us in English and Urdu. I want to learn here and then become a teacher myself.
Prime Minister Imran Khan has vowed to prioritize and invest in education, but the government continues to spend less than is recommended by international standards.
Education should be the priority of government. So even if they have plans, what I personally feel is where we fail is when we are implementing it. If things are moving in the same direction, I don't think so we'll be able to achieve this target within 2030 goal. We won't be able to achieve.
Sajid says he would love to become a policeman. But the only real hope he and millions like him have is if Pakistan not only seriously reforms its education system, but also lifts families like Sajid's out of poverty to send their children to school. The government has its work cut out though. According to the latest UN forecast, 1 in 4 children will not complete their education by 2030.
Now, one of the organisations that had a hand in setting the Sustainable Development Goals is the UN Development Programme. Its administrator is former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen. She joins us from The Hague. Welcome to DW. Getting children into school and raising an educated workforce seems like an ambition that everyone can get behind. So what's going wrong?
What's going wrong is underinvestment in education. The donor community has stagnated what it is investing in poor countries for education over the last 9 years or so. And it's estimated that we're about $39 billion short on what would need to be spent to really reach those goals. The truth is, if we carry on as we are, complacency, we're walking towards an enormous failure on the goal by 2030. So it's wake up time. Otherwise, by 2030, we will still be seeing something close to 250 million children, adolescents, and youth out of school.
So presumably the donor countries are not the countries who would directly benefit from these donations. The donor countries aren't going to see any direct benefit themselves.
Well, I think they do see direct benefit, actually, because countries where people are educated, are able to participate in society and the economy, where they can contribute to a peaceful society, they're not the countries that are going to be having the spillover problems, which have obviously impacted Germany and Europe so much in recent times. So I think it is an investment in our common human security to invest in education and support the poorest countries to get every child in school. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals as a whole, then education has an impact on so many of them. If you can educate people, you have a chance of lifting far more out of poverty, of stopping the early marriage, which is, of course, keeping girls out of school in Pakistan and other countries. So this research that UNESCO has put out for the Global Education Monitoring Report, and I'm the chair of the advisory board now, and also the Institute of Statistics, is very important because it says we're way off track. But if we did these things, we could be on track.
We use Pakistan as an example in our report. Pakistan, a country that's just been approved for a $6 billion IMF loan. So the country is having economic problems. Donor countries are having economic problems. So where's the big sell? How do you convince donor countries and indeed the recipient countries that this is to their benefit? There is something in this for you.
Well, firstly, no country ever developed without very, very significant investment in the education of its people. It's absolutely fundamental. And now that we're living in the world of the knowledge society where we have to adapt to new knowledge, new technologies all the time, the countries that can't equip their children with that knowledge and those skills to acquire knowledge are just going to get further and further behind. Now, one of the core principles of the Sustainable Development Agenda, which every country signed up to, was leave no one behind. But on these trends, we're going to be leaving close to 250 million children behind. That's not a recipe for a peaceful world. And that's why I say it's in our common human security to be addressing these issues.
I'm sorry if I sound like I'm labouring the point, but I'm wondering how you make that sell directly to communities. We saw a poor fishing community there in the film. There's no point talking to them about taking part in the knowledge economy when they can't put food on the table and they can barely find facilities to actually put a school together.
That's right, but education is one of those investments which can break through that cycle of poverty. A child with education who's got more skills is able to be more entrepreneurial, is able to go to higher levels of education, can send money back home into the village, whether it's from remittances or from a job in the city or from a vibrant farm that's actually able to be more productive. So education is the key to getting people out of poverty. People will stay stuck in poverty if they can't rise out of illiteracy and innumeracy.
Good talking to you. We wish you well. Thank you for joining us. Helen Clark from the UN Development Programme.